Injuries are a part of every sport, but that's especially true when it comes to football. When you have 22 burly, super fast NFL players colliding on the field, you can expect some concussions, muscle tears, and occasional broken bones. Today, we're going to take a trip down memory lane and talk about some of the most gruesome injuries in NFL history. Heads up, not a good idea to watch this if you just gobbled down a huge meal. First up, Ronnie goes for amputation after injury. Ronnie Lott was one of the most feisty players throughout the 80s and 90s, and some of his plays are still remembered today. But unfortunately, one of his most well-known games is not particularly pretty. Back in 1985, Lott was playing hard in a game against the Dallas Cowboys when an awkward collision crushed his pinky finger towards his chest. The blow nearly severed his finger, and both flesh and bone fragments were left on the field as he ran off. Witnesses were unable to see the extent of the injury at first, but doctors realized quickly that this was going to be a long and tedious recovery. Lott had two options. They could either pin his hand and graft bone from his wrist, which would be a very long recovery, or they could amputate it just above the first joint. Lott chose amputation and continued to play football despite missing the tip of his finger for a whole nother decade. Mad respect for Ronnie and his dedication to the game. Next, we have Joe Theismann's broken bone. Okay, this one's probably one of the most well-known injuries in football history, as well as one of the most graphic ones. Back in 1985, the New York Giants were playing the Washington Redskins in the second quarter when something terrible happened. As the Giants went for a blitz, Lawrence Taylor came barreling into Redskins quarterback Theismann, dragging him down for the sack. As it happened, Taylor's knee drove into Theismann's leg, shattering it in a spectacularly graphic way. Rather than celebrating the hit, Taylor immediately began calling for help after the play ended, and national television viewers watched as Theismann lay on the field. Who would have thought it'll turn out to be Theismann's last ever game, leaving him with one leg permanently shorter than the other? Now, we have Destry Wright's career-ending injury. Many of you might remember Destry Wright. He was a promising young running back about to make his pro debut with the Pittsburgh Steelers. His skill was on point. He was impressing all the right people. Everything was going great until a preseason game against the Dallas Cowboys in 2000 took everything from him. During a game, Wright's ankle became caught and twisted, dislocating the joint and breaking his leg. Wright not only broke his right leg, but his ankle dislocated so badly that he was photographed laying on his stomach while his right foot pointed in a completely opposite direction. He obviously had to go through multiple surgical procedures to get it fixed, but unfortunately, the injury ended his career before it even started. Next is Alex Smith's gruesome injury. Smith's incredible football career forged ahead in 2018 when he was traded to Washington, and after finally becoming a part of an organization that was committed to him, Smith led Washington to a handsome 6-3 record, and then Houston's Kareem Jackson and J.J. Watt tag teamed on a legal sack. And football is, well, the cruelest of sports. Smith's right leg suffered a compound fracture of the fibula and tibia. It was already the most horrific football injury in the last 25 years. As if that wasn't enough, then came the infection that led to sepsis, 17 surgeries, and Smith's agonizing decision to keep his leg from being amputated. His leg and life were both thankfully saved, but his career, no way. But he wasn't done yet. Smith's return to action in October 2020, nearly 2 years after his injury, was nothing short of a miracle. The man who couldn't walk for months because of a clunky metal knee brace was back in action. He played for another year before retiring, and we gotta say, that's an incredible story. Up next, Junior Seau's arm dangles after breaking. Junior Seau's story is a tragic one to say the least, and this is only a small part of it. When he came out of retirement to play a game with the New England Patriots in 2006, the linebacker was technically not in his best form. Seau was attempting a tackle against the Chicago Bears when his arm became caught and bent at an awkward angle. His arm snapped, and he was seen rolling on the ground with it hanging limply. The injury was the beginning of the end for Seau, and it effectively ended his season. Sadly, Seau committed suicide in 2012, and doctors discovered he had chronic brain damage from his time in the NFL. This wasn't just a case of a broken arm or a leg, but a broken heart. Truly tragic. And then we have Darryl Stingley permanently paralyzed by Tatum's hit. Till now, we've seen a lot of leg injuries, neck injuries, some broken bones and ligaments, but this one's got to be one of the absolute worst. Darryl Stingley of the New England Patriots was going up to catch a pass in the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum in 1978 when Jack Tatum ran into him with both speed and intent, crashing into him and causing irreversible damage. After Stingley went down, he didn't get up and he didn't move at all. Everyone on the field flocked to check on him, and even medical professionals rushed onto the field. When the doctors examined him, they realized that he couldn't feel anything in his limbs and that 2 of his vertebrae had been crushed. Stingley was paralyzed from that point on the field for the rest of his life, and Tatum never apologized for his actions. And now, let's talk about how Mike Utley got paralyzed. Even today, it takes a lot of guts to be Mike Utley. The Detroit Lions player was involved in an awkward hit that damaged his spine during a game against the Los Angeles Rams in 1991. And still, even though he couldn't move much of his body, Utley managed to give the crowd a thumbs up to show that he was doing well. Unfortunately though, he was not at all okay. Utley had broken parts of his vertebrae and was paralyzed as a result of the injury, effectively ending his football career. But Utley remained unfazed. He's since become an advocate for victims of spinal cord injuries, lives an active and sporty lifestyle, and his iconic thumbs up sign has become a symbol of perseverance for his organization. Mad props to Mike. Next up, let's discuss Eric Wood's many injuries. Eric Wood would be the first one to tell you that having a massive football player fall on your leg is not a good thing. In 2009, during a game between the Bills and the Jaguars, Wood was simply running during a play as usual when disaster struck. An opposing player collided with the rookie's shin, pinning his foot to the ground and completely breaking the leg bone in half in 2 places. It was so bad that Wood rolled around on the field the following few minutes, screaming in agony. As his teammates and trainers attempted to help him off the field, the pain on his face was evident, and he knew the season for him was over. Eric hasn't had an easy run on the field. He then again broke his leg in 2016, but went on to play another 2 years before the 32-year-old suffered a career-ending and life-threatening neck injury that forced him to retire. And how can we forget Knox's torso bending the other way? There are times when you just have to admit the human body isn't designed to do certain things, including bending in a certain way. This was the case for Johnny Knox in a game against the Seattle Seahawks in 2011. Knox fumbled while running upfield after Cam Chancellor knocked the ball loose. He attempted to leap on the loose ball, but as he slid forward, he collided with Hargrove, who was also attempting to recover the fumble. What we see next is horrifying. Stuff of nightmares, straight out of slasher flicks. The impact had Knox's torso sickeningly bent in half, and his back is seen touching his rear. Knox obviously suffered permanent nerve damage as a result of this injury, and he required surgery to fuse parts of his spine back together. And of course, he never returned to the NFL again either. And finally, we have Napoleon McCullum's gruesome knee injury. This is another injury that's not for the faint-hearted. Running back McCullum was playing for the Los Angeles Raiders against the 49ers when Ken Norton Jr. grabbed him during a play. The movement was so quick that McCullum's left foot did not move with the rest of his body as the 2 men fell. This resulted in him dislocating his knee, hyperextending it, and rupturing an artery. They had to quickly airlift McCullum out of the stadium as he shrieked in pain. The calf muscle and ligaments were ripped from the bone, requiring an urgent surgery to fix his leg, and there was also a possibility of amputation. That was fortunately avoided, but doctors told McCullum that his career was definitely over. And that's a wrap for this video. What other gruesome NFL injury made you super uncomfortable? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more. See ya in the next one.